Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to those of you that are new here. I'm going to be talking about 10 realistic ways to celebrate Imbolc. Now, Imbolc is one of those pagan holidays that, doesn't often fit nicely in with some of the more secular holidays in the way that Samhain fits in with Halloween and Yule fits in with Christmas. Christmas, I guess technically isn't secular, but for a lot of people it is. But Imbolc, there really isn't like a celebration that happens around this time anymore, with the exception of maybe Groundhog Day, right? Which is more, I know that's a North American thing for those of you listening in other parts of the world. There's this idea that the groundhog comes out on the morning of February 2nd, and if he sees his shadow, that means 6 more weeks of winter. So that's really all that's kind of left of like the ancient, or the older celebrations around this time of year. Now, Imbolc is sort of an interesting holiday for me in particular, just because it does not line up with the traditional Wheel of the Year, in that the Wheel of the Year is really based in British practices and in the British cycle of the seasons. Now, most of the holidays match up, but Imbolc is one that just does not match up in my part of the world, because I live on the prairies and I live in Canada, and it is winter. It is not the beginning of spring. There are no signs of spring at this time of year. It is the middle of winter. Now, this year actually is a little bit unusual because usually it's like super cold at this time of year, and we've actually had like a really mild winter. And I think that's partly climate change, unfortunately. And also, I think there's an El Nino, El Nina. I never know which one it is. But either way, it's like 0 degrees today. So I can't remember what that is in Fahrenheit, but basically it's like, the freezing melting point. I think that's 30 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. Anyway, really unusually warm. And we haven't had as much snow as we usually have, although we do have snow. I mean, we always have snow in winter. So anyway, long story short, I have to adapt it a little bit for me because it's not the beginning of spring here. It's not the beginning of spring. There are no flowers. That's just not a thing. So for me, I've adapted it more to be like a winter type of festival, a winter, middle of winter, or halfway through kind of celebration. So I wanted to give you 10 ideas to celebrate the season, regardless of whether it's the beginning of spring in your area or you're like me and you live in the frozen north. So how to celebrate Imbolc. And I just want to recognize too that yes, it is Imbolc here in the Northern Hemisphere. However, in the Southern Hemisphere, it is Lammas. So happy Lammas to my Southern Hemisphere friends. But anyway, we're going to talk about Imbolc. So Imbolc is a festival of light. It is when we notice things are turning a lot lighter than they were. We're really starting to notice that the, nights are getting a little bit shorter. It's still, more dark than light, but especially here when you live in, more northern latitudes. But we are seeing things get better. So for example, just before, around Yule, I was leaving in the morning for work and it was dark, and then I was coming home and it was dark. And now it's still dark when I leave in the morning, but the sun is just setting when I'm coming home. It's just, so I'm noticing that it's getting lighter. We're getting more hours of daylight. And so that's a really lovely thing. And so we're noticing these changes. And then in other parts of the world, they're starting to see, maybe some little sprouts come up or little flowers and things. So we're starting to notice, there's that change in light, there's that change in energy. This time of year is traditionally, at least in sort of, the Wicca-based and more Celtic practices associated with the goddess Bridget. She is a goddess of healing and of smith work, of fire, and also of creativity as well. So it often honors her. And in other sort of Wiccan cycles, it's like generally the return of the goddess, in the cycle of the seasons. So that's like a general thing about Imbolc. So how do you celebrate Imbolc, or what are some ideas to celebrate this season? Well, the first thing is, obviously, it is associated with what they call animal augury or animal omens. So we have the groundhog popping his head out, and if there's a shadow, 6 more weeks of winter. Here, there's always at least 6 more weeks of winter, but whatever. In further southern latitudes, that might be a relevant animal omen, right? But I think, wherever you live in the world, on February 2nd, notice if you see any unusual animals. That's one thing that I like to do on days, not just in bulk, but any of those Sabbats is, you know, if I come across any animals I don't usually see. Like, for example, when in my neighborhood, I see things like sparrows every day. I see a lot of rabbits, not as much this year, but in other years, see a lot of rabbits. But if I was, I see deer on occasion where I live. But if I was to see something like, a robin at this time of year, or if I was to see a skunk or something, that would be unusual, right? So I take note of any sort of unusual animal omens at this time of year. So you can do that too wherever you live. If you just notice something that is unusual for this time of year or an unusual animal, look that animal up, look to see what its symbolism is, because that can be an omen for the coming year. And it's a really fun way to make sure that you're interacting with nature, which goes to my second thing, which is to go out and take a walk or to do something to embrace the weather outside, whatever it is. I know in northern latitudes this time of year, it's kind of, whether you're living in, the middle of winter like I am, or it's just sort of like, it's not quite spring yet, it's that really gray, rainy kind of season. It can be a little bit of effort to get outside, but I think it's nice, unless it's like, we've had some years where it's like -40 outside right now. Luckily this year, no. But get outside, go and, take a walk around, even if it's a short walk. Look to see if there are any changes in nature. Look to see, is it lighter than it used to be? Like, just even going for a walk sometimes can connect us with nature and some of the changes that are going on and make us more likely to see some of those unusual animals. And if you are someone that's, you love the outdoors and you love going outside this time of year, I mean, take advantage of it, right? Especially like where I live, there's like skating, there's like cross-country skiing, some people go, skidooing and things. Like, if you love that kind of stuff, go out there and do those kind of things to connect with nature and connect with the outdoors. Because where I live, we winter 5 months a year, so you have to learn to embrace it in some way. But go outside, whatever your weather is, and go for a walk and just like see the changes that are going on in the season and in nature can be a really good way to embrace the season. Now, the season is associated with light and the return of light, so candles are great for this time of year. It could be great to light some candles, and often I find in January a lot of those like Christmas scented kind of candles go on sale, so you can kind of stock up on the lovely cozy wintry scents. So like filling like with your home with light. So that doesn't necessarily mean candles. I know not everybody, can light candles, and if you light too many candles, that can be a fire hazard, quite frankly. But lighting candles or putting up like the fairy lights. I like that a lot of people here, they might have taken down their Christmas trees, but a lot of people leave their outside, Christmas lights on because it's still quite dark in this part of the world. So it gives you that sense of a little bit of cheer still, that there's light around. So having things like, like fairy lights and candles, and if you have like a fireplace or wood stove, bringing that element of fire and light into the home can be a really wonderful way to bring that light in and sort of that sympathetic magic of like encouraging the light to grow. Now, if you're more of an indoor girly like myself or guy, um, making sure your home is cozy, I think that is one of the fourth ways that you can really celebrate and embrace this time of year. And I mean, candles and stuff can certainly, and lights can be a part of that, but making sure you have things like cozy sweaters and cozy socks and blankets and things, just making sure that you have like a cozy environment and really embracing sort of that coziness of this time of year. Well, I mean, spring is going to come and we're going to be outside, and it's that more extroverted time of year at that time, but we're still in like kind of that hibernating mode. We're still in that, this darker time of year. And so I think it's important to embrace some of that coziness, to embrace, just being inside and being really, really cozy. Um, Another thing that you can do is comfort food. Now, I know there is a lot of pressure around this time of year, especially right after the holidays. You see all the ads that are like, you got to get exercising, you got to go on this diet, you got to lose weight, you got to get healthy, blah, 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 blah. But for most of us, I mean, this is the dark and cold time of year. It's not really a time of year for depriving ourselves, that's for sure. We want comfort food. We crave comfort food at this time of year. And so, Imbolc has an association with milk, with like calves and sheep being born. It has this association with things like milk and cheese and butter. And I know not everybody can eat those things for, variety of dietary reasons. They might be lactose intolerant, or, maybe they're a vegetarian or they're vegan or something where they don't want to eat them. But there are like other substitutes as well. So, having that cozy comfort food, like I kind of like being Canadian, I have to say, like, poutine, very cozy comfort food. I mean, it's potatoes, it's gravy, and it's cheese. Like, comfort food, right? And it's kind of food that you crave at this time of year where you want that comforting food. But comfort food can look different to different people. Like everybody's got their own version of like comfort food, right? But I think, we have to kind of go with the cycles of seasons and not just what like advertisers are telling us to do. I think it's really important to have those cozy comfort foods at this time of year. Whatever that looks like for you. Things like, the casseroles and the soups and the, like the noodles, all those things that comfort us, when we're in kind of this cold, dark time of year. Like spring is on its way, it's going to come. But right now, we need a little comfort, we need a little coziness. Now, along with that, one of the things that some people associate with Imbolc in this time of year is spring cleaning. I kind of, mine is a little bit later just because of the way the seasons are here, but I think it is a good time to do some sorting and some organizing, some clearing out of things, clearing away things like clutter and stuff, almost like we're kind of preparing for the spring to come. We're preparing for that energy. It can be a really good thing to do, even if you're just tidying up a little area, maybe getting rid of some clothes that don't fit you anymore, make you feel kind of doing those kind of things can be another way to celebrate Imbolc because you're kind of clearing away some of that old energy in order to bring the new in when we have like all the springtime energy come towards us later on in the year. Another way that you can celebrate season of Imbolc kind of goes with the coziness and also with some of Bridget's associations is reading, snuggling up with some good books. Again, it's still kind of like still kind of a meh kind of time of the year for a lot of people. And some people, I know are affected by, it being so dark and stuff. Cozying up with a good book can definitely help, can help us get out of ourselves, or, whether it's like a good piece of fiction or it's like a book about an interesting subject that we really want to learn about. I think reading at this time of year, cozying up with some books, maybe like looking at the books you have on your shelf, thinking about what you want to read, those kind of things can really bring in that coziness and also that sense of like, okay, we're preparing, we're learning, for the coming year. Or if we're looking at fiction, just even like comforting ourselves with cozy, wonderful stories can be a really good thing to do at this time of year. Um, Another thing we can do to celebrate this season is creativity. Bridget is a goddess of creativity. And so, doing things like writing or dancing or painting and drawing, maybe like you like to crochet or knit, whatever your creativity is, it's going to look different for everyone. Spending some time doing that. Like, it's not an accident, the part of the world where I live, is, we're not super heavily populated, but we do produce a lot of writers and musicians and artists. And that's because it's cold and it's dark. And what else are you going to do when it's too cold to go outside? But, we entertain ourselves, right? And so that's why we have, sort of we have a lot of creativity come out. And so it's good to explore your creativity. It's good to take that time that we have and on those, dark evenings and, maybe like knit a little bit or crochet something or draw something, whatever your creative outlet is, play some music. It's important to connect with that creativity. And that can really help us to cheer us, especially for someone that is affected by, all the, the lack of light outside. And, if you're more of a summer baby and you're looking forward to, those lighter parts of the year, that can be a really good way to kind of like lift your spirits by practicing your creativity. Another thing we can do at this time of year, and I associate this with this time of year, is dedicating ourselves to a specific, either some people this time of year will dedicate to a specific god or goddess that they're working with, or maybe you have a word of the year or phrase of the year that you're working with, or maybe there is just something you have an intention for the year. Like maybe your intention is, working on your physical health, or maybe your intention is you're working on, abundance, or you're working on your creativity, whatever it is. Doing some kind of ritual where you are stating, this is what I am working on this year. There's a lot of energy around the new year, setting all these goals and things. But I find what often happens is we start the year like very gung ho. And then the realities of like our day to day routines and things kind of, catch up with us. We maybe get a little over ambitious. I see that period between like New Year's and February 1st as a time to sort of incubate the goals that I've set, to see how much is realistic. And then when like 2nd comes around, when Imbolc comes around, to really say, okay, like what is it that I am committing to? Like what is it that I can realistically do or I'm hoping to do this year? And so I actually do have on my Patreon, it's open to all members. So you can join like as a free member and see this. This is something I want to do this year is have the Sabbath suggested sort of spells or rituals open to all the members. So if you want to join there, you totally can. But I have like a really simple, I am all about simple and straightforward because we're all overwhelmed. Let's face it. I feel like everybody is just like, there's so much stuff in the world, so much going on that we need simple, straightforward things, realistic things without a gazillion ingredients in them. So I have a dedication ritual that's going to go up, on my Patreon, open to all members. So if you want to check it out, you can, or you want to design your own, obviously go ahead. It's to me, Imbolc's about that dedication and saying this year this is what I'm dedicating this to. I'm actually going to do a video soon about what my word of the year is and why I picked it and all that stuff. So anyway, long story short, check that out over there. But maybe do something where you're saying like, hey, like this is what I want to do. Because sometimes too, we start off with a word of the year and maybe by February we're like, I don't think that's the energy of this year. And especially because I feel like when Pluto changed in Aquarius, that was when the year really kind of the energy of 2024 really started. So yeah, use it as a time of year to dedicate yourself to whatever your goal is for this particular year. And then finally, you can celebrate the year by watching Groundhog Day, the movie. I watch that movie, I wouldn't say every year, but almost every year on Groundhog Day. It is a lovely, cozy movie. And it's a reminder about like, doing your best in the world and, living your life, in the best way possible. So it's a really lovely, uplifting thing to do on Imbolc. So those are my ideas for celebrating Imbolc in a realistic way that can fit into the life that we have. So let me know what your thoughts are, what you do for Imbolc. Also like what is the weather like at in your part of the world this time of year? I know for me, Imbolc is like, it's one of those ones, it just doesn't match up for me. And I think it's important that we not be too rigid about the wheel of the year. We have to adapt it for the part of the world that we live in, right? Like, let's be realistic. Anyway, if you want to check out my Patreon, like I said, you can check it out in the link below. Also, my Etsy shop for February, I'm going to be highlighting relationship readings because we are in the month of Valentine's Day, so they're going to be at a reduced price for the month of February. These are not just for romantic relationships. It can be for any relationship, but you can check it out there if you want to. Otherwise, just thank you so much for being here. Thank you for comments. Thank you for support. And thank you to my patrons. This wouldn't happen without you, so thank you so much. But you guys are all so lovely and great. I'm wishing you a wonderful, blessed Imbolc. And for those of you that are in the Southern Hemisphere, a wonderful and happy Lammas. And as always, peace and love and rock.